Hi, this is Jerry McLaughlin, co-author of the book Cold Wax Medium: Techniques, Concepts, and Conversations, and co-producer of Cold Wax Medium, a video workshop. Welcome to Ask Jerry and Rebecca, a video series answering all your questions about cold wax medium. Hi, and welcome to this episode of Ask Jerry and Rebecca. I'm coming to you from my home in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico. If you've watched one or two of these before in my home, you'll notice that the sound is, there's a lot of echo, and I apologize for that. I'm doing my best to eliminate that in post-production, but my house is all stone and concrete, and the microphone just picks up a lot of echo. So I'm working on getting a clip mic that will hopefully reduce or eliminate that altogether. But today's question comes to us from a few people, from Maria Fernandez, Karen Duffy, and John Skrikolik. I think that's how you say it. That's how I'm going to guess. But the question is really about cold wax and its effects on color, intensity, luminosity, and things like that. And what several people have noticed when they used cold wax is that when their painting dries, the colors tend to look less saturated. And that's absolutely true. There's no question about that. People say, well, I use oil paints because I like saturated color. Well, it's not so much about the oil paint or the wax itself. It's about the surface. So matte surfaces just don't reflect as much light. And when they do reflect it, the reflection comes back at a variety of different angles. And when that happens, you lose saturation and intensity of color. And it's very, very common for people to paint their painting. It's all still wet. They come back in a day or two and it's dried, and there's some dry down of the color. And that's just part and parcel to having a matte surface. Now, you can do a few things to improve that. You can bump up the ratio so that you use a little bit more oil paint to wax, and that'll add a little bit more pigment ratio. You can add something like Galkid or one of the other oil painting mediums that bump up sheen a little bit, because that increased sheen will increase saturation. The other thing you could do is do some kind of varnish at the end of your painting. And even a matte varnish will intensify the color because it creates a cohesive layer across the whole surface that just gives back light in a different way, and that bumps up saturation. One of the things that you might find if you are mixing your paint with a really heavy amount of wax is that the intensity of your color may go down. You may also notice that if you're using student grade paints. One, they don't have as high a pigment load. Two, they're often inferior pigments or dyes. And three, they're more dilute if you increase the ratio of wax. So using a better quality paint and don't overdo it with wax is going to help you bump up the intensity and saturation of your color. But still, again, you're going to have to deal with the dry down part of a matte surface. There's just nothing you can do about that. And for me, where I notice it the most is black. When black dries in a cold wax painting, it just becomes this like sinkhole for light. And I usually end up having to do a few things to my blacks so that I think that they maintain depth and interest in my paintings. Another aspect of using cold wax is luminosity. Now, this is different than brightness or saturation. Luminosity is a little hard to explain, but it has to do with the way light passes either to a painting and bounces back, or through a painting and then comes back. And If you think about something that is lit from behind, like a computer screen or a television, there's just no way to match the luminosity of a surface that's lit from behind. Light is actually coming from the inside out. And we see that, we notice it. It changes the way something looks. Colors on a computer screen are just phenomenally saturated and bright and rich. And that's tough to get in a painting because most paintings, light is hitting the surface and coming back at us. One of the things that cold wax and encaustic medium both do is they add luminosity. The wax itself creates an open space where light can go into the painting and then bounce back so that there is this luminosity, this sense of light emanating from the painting. That is a real and literal effect. It's not painting a painting so that it gives the illusion of luminosity like you might with a sunrise or a sunset or an outdoor landscape painting where you really work on luminosity. Um, it's a real effect. And if you don't believe me, I would encourage you to do a test because years ago I would have said it doesn't really matter, it doesn't really do anything because once you get all of those opaque paints on there and you have all these layers, that's just not really a thing. It is a thing. And the way I did it was I took a piece of white multimedia artboard and a piece of black multimedia artboard, and I painted essentially the same painting on both of them. You can show them to anybody, and you can tell which one was painted on the white background. Even those opaque layers and many, many layers stacked up, light still manages to go in and come back better from the white surface than the black surface. So it's a real thing, and it is a little bit different than saturation or intensity of color. And it's one of the reasons people use cold wax is because they like that luminosity that some other mediums just don't give. So I hope that helps answer those questions, and I'll see you next time. Bye.